Hello again, and welcome. Today we are going to be doing a dive into the newest chapter. Kind of have some discussions about it. We're going to go through it. I'm going to comment a little bit here and there. If that's not your thing, then I understand. So the last time we saw the Riko-gang, they had just met Serajo after an encounter with Bondrewd versus the Hex Squad that ended in a scuffle and stolen relics. Feeling somewhat revenged, I guess the team like loosened up for a brief second, but it wasn't enough for Serajo to trust them. Like, she's still very picky about who she trusts and who she lets in. So she puts them to a test of sorts, a trial. They do the thing from the trial from the last chapter, and learn that white whistles have the ability to transform Nishigora. We don't know if that's every single Juso or if that's just Nishigora specifically. But it can transform Nishigora into an enhanced version, similar to Reg when Riko uses hers. And maybe the twins. She says, like, formation stance and stuff, and, like, safety stance or whatever, but we never actually see the twins do anything crazy, right? Anyway, but the crew, after the trial, get the bath as they were promised, win or lose, and we discover a new type of relic, multiple, it seems, to create, like, this detergent thing that can be used for bathing, like soap, gracefully interrupted by Srajo herself coming in and ordering Nishigora to throw Rega to the tub, which again is actually another stolen relic. A small dehydrated pot, about like this big, Nanachi said, until it's heated and wet. Moist. And then it expands into the size of like a large tub, right? Faputa like going in there, making that face. It's kind of cute. But the real stuff in this section, oh my god, dude. Okay, so first off, we're introduced to the Hex Squad. Starting with Yadomar, who handles transportation and setting up the camp and such. Substitute cook, I guess. Nicknamed Combatant. Nishigora, a huge furry Juso with a hot temper, ready to explode on anyone. She's kind of like the defense of the group. I would say defense because she didn't really attack Rig. Like, she just kind of stood there and was like, yeah, if you can knock me over, then you win. It's not like, beat this shit out of me, you know? But anyway, nickname Charger. And then we have Shirumi and Mine, nicknamed Snipers. These twins, we can only theorize they have powerful enhancements or powerful attachments with a white whistle activation, or maybe just a relic attachment into their missing limb slots, you know? Because they were really surprised with Reg when he had the gentle knock, and they wanted to talk to him, and they were like, what's going on? But anyway, they are close to age to Riko-gang, which I think is very important. I think it's kind of just brushed off, like, oh yeah, they're close to your age. But, like, we know that kids are special and made in Abyss for whatever reason. The prisoner, Tapaste, currently thinking right now that she's like a complete version of Juso. I just don't get what's up with the claws in the bar. Was that just her nails, or was that actual like she popped the claw out and hit him with it? Because it kind of was like venom too, right? Unless she just had it in her hand like a needle and she pricked him with it, and the needle had venom on it, right? But that's just me. It's just a thought. I'm just spitballing. All this is just spitballing. But she does seem heavily connected to Miko and perhaps the cult around the Miko. And finally, we have Storehouse, Frapam, where we discover animals like that, like Menya. Maybe all creatures, or some, or most, in the Abyss are Juso. In a way, Serajo explains it as as an animal fetus with something else in it. So, but we'll get to that. We then learn that the lore of cave raiders is one built on depravity and blood, straight savagery. Okay, we learn from Serajo herself that Juso is a term for those born as Narehate and can only occur, though rarely, with those born in the Abyss itself. That the information that they are hearing is one of massive proportion that only very few people, including white whistles, are aware of. The strain of the sixth layer and its true lore come out. Complete loss of humanity. Transformation into Narehate. Quote, transformation into Narehate, due to loss of humanity, is the wound of honor, which means one has reached the final boundary. but that when encountered, they are to be killed and any belongings taken, and is looked at as a way to preserve the honor of the fallen raider. Juso, on the other hand, are given no such honor. Even as babies, as soon as they are born, if they are Juso, they're sacrificed, they're disposed of. We don't know how exactly, if they were just straight up killing these things, or if they were like sacrificing them for white whistles or a certain relic or something. Serajo doesn't answer. Me personally, I'm thinking sacrifice. I don't think it's just quite killing them off, but the Sovreign of Mystery, indeed. Instead, she throws the ball into Riko-gang's court, asking them to properly introduce themselves. Riko jumps in with her name, her objective, her list of aiming for the bottom of the abyss to figure out where Raid came from, and searching for her mom, and stops to not give out too much information, as the white whistles we've seen so far are completely unhinged in totally different ways, okay? Immediately telling Serajo how cautious they are, especially around white whistles, and that this priestess and this Miko that they're, like, desperately looking for is something that is just completely foreign to them, okay? Serajo exclaiming how rational the thinking is, and calling Nanachi the wrong name, brings them somewhere so heart-stopping that you can literally feel it through the page. The edge of the 7th layer. Blocked off by some fleshy, massy swirl that does, I think, pretty obviously resemble a fetus. I think that's intentional. Getting huge Gygas vibes from here. but Riko refers to the swirl as an eye. Also, the whole rest of the structure around it is swirled into the center with almost like a perfect rock like ring around it that you can see it on the left side. You can see it sticking out, and then the rest is covered by fossilized ruins that are also swirling, by the way. So it's like all the space is completely swirled. That's a crazy amount of force to bend space that way. She throws us another bombshell, asking Riko a rhetorical question and what the strains of ascension would be in the 7th layer, correcting from the obvious certain death that it is made out and taught out to be, certain death, but written notes of a single account of the 7th layer's curse is real and has been lost for 250 years so far. Abyss time, Orth time, we don't know. There's not a clarification. But back then, when male balloons couldn't possibly ever make it from the final boundary, one did. A sealed letter, and found in the 1st layer. It was appraised as something definitely sent from the final boundary, okay? The accounts of the 7th layer's curse was being translated and decoded. The information that would help thousands of raiders in generations to come was stolen or disposed of in the middle of the process. And yet, for some reason, by luck or the abyss itself, pieces of the missing pages have been making their way through the cracks of Orth and passed down as fairy tales for young raiders to play and enjoy. These notes? The Hari Yamari collection. The problem being the game of telephone. And the information has been skewed and altered completely, that Srajo is looking for the last piece of original notes, as these songs and these nursery rhymes are too diluted for her to use as solid information to go into the 7th layer. Srajo knows the abyss, and she knows how merciless it is at all times, okay? She is not willing to sacrifice her team or herself to figure that out. Okay, one wrong move and you're dead. There's no going back. She needs to be 100% sure that she has the information needed to trek down further. Quote, that information, it is said to be indispensable for reaching the final depth, the bottom of the abyss, while still alive. Now that is curious. While still alive? So you would have to die, right? Because we know that even though Riko is half dead, half not dead, she's affected by the curse. We know that Nanachi, even though being blessed by the abyss, or, blessed by the abyss, that she's still affected by the curse. She has advantages like maybe some of the animals down there, but I think that that's where we're going with this, right? Anthropomorphic creatures mixed with animals. I think this is the way that it's supposed to be going, right? Anyway, searching for the priestess or Will, along with a collaborator of some sort, okay? Someone was going back and forth with this person that was writing about the curse of the 7th layer. Serajo holds Tapaste hostage with hopes of the Miko showing up, or I don't know what Serajo was thinking there. She seems to be saying a lot but very little at the same time. Kind of got like the carrot on the stick thing with her. I don't know, it's weird. Like, if the Miko can't pass the threshold of the 7th, then what good is a hostage for? The guards or the knights or whatever? Like, are they supposed to be the ones that coming to rescue? Like, I don't know. The phrasing is weird. Maybe it's wrong translation or whatever. But knowing how much knowledge that she just dropped on them, like bombshell after bombshell, tells them to sit down and finally introduce themselves. With Balof's will and Nanachi, she instinctually makes the origin of Faputa vague. Surprised by what a ragtag team they are, Srajo compliments them with the wrong word, and it explains deeper about Menya and creatures like her. Okay, she says that it is most likely something mixed with an animal fetus, but that it is closer to a Juso more than anything, claiming that Bondrewd was also experimenting with this process, and as a byproduct, Menya and creatures like her were created. This whole mixture of genetics or something like that gives the mirrored note some extra weirdness about the heart of the question mark, resembling that of a Kamazuno. Serajo telling the twins that it's been long enough to not have their mask plates on, and deny the statement, muttering that being too timid is also troublesome. Riko, taking in all of this information, sits in silence with Menya running around her neck, probably due to her being born in the Abyss in the first place. Well, technically twice, and is not a Juso. Or how Faputa would be the only one you could consider a Juso. Questions that got answered to be replaced with truths you'd rather stay ignorant to. Tapaste, ordered to help the twins take a bath, excited to talk to Reg after seeing the trial go down, brings Reg along as Serajo demanded, with nothing in mind but intelligence gathering, hoping any one of them spill something useful, as she said, everyone's got 10 or 20 secrets. Just then, Yadamar walks up to Serajo and explains that the girl type couldn't possibly be Reg, as the clothes had a lot of differences along with being a boy. Nanachi, hearing every single word, wittily asks what it is they're specifically talking about. Serajo admits that, yes, this girl type, Albad, or whatever she is considered, something to be of interest at the very least. That she is first suspected Rake to be this figure, but other notes of a long head of hair with a high-pitched voice, and of course the mention of breasts. This goes even deeper, assuming that Bondrewd Sparagamos was taken from this girl type, as sightings of her in the vicinity of the front of Edo Front have been circulating around, the White Whistles, and talks of rumors amongst higher-ups in Orth. That Bondrewd never had such a powerful relic before then, and something of that origin couldn't possibly exist in the 5th layer. Prodding an answer with a question, asks if Reg could possibly have a light of origin just as powerful. The silence was an answer itself. Before we get any further with that, though, of course, we switch over to Reg, Tapaste, and the twins. Tapaste telling Reg how much the twins wanted to talk to him, finding a moment of relief in watching eyes, or at least made out to be. Tapaste confronts Reg with his gentle knock attachment, desperately needing to know where and how he got such a thing. Reg explains the incident with Krivali, giving her details on the fallen raider, claiming he was indeed dead, but that maybe his will was still breathing. His presence was felt. I looked back at chapter 62 and found nothing else they took from his body except the 2 relics mentioned, the mermaid's breath and the gentle knock. Anyway, we're interrupted by the commotion of the twins, both in the same tub. We see why they cover themselves up from head to toe, and why they were told to go in one at a time. They're Juso. Perhaps not. Covered with fur, though. Looking like a true resident, but not really a true resident. True resident carried with an animal? With hollows? Something to think about. Tapaste gently tells them the order was for this reason, and asks Reg for help with grabbing Mene. Now, a totally different person. Thing, 6 nipples, and almost rabbit-like floppy ears that fold on the top of her head. With the entire body amputated, Reg is confused. Asks, why? How could you end up like this? With it, amazed by his gentle knock arm, I thought for being a relic, he could attach it to an amputated arm, right? They don't have any limbs or anything, so seeing something like that is like, oh, that's so smart, I could do that. They beg him not to have them remember, and that Reg and everybody else will end up the same exact way. And that's the end. That's all we get. So there is so much to dive into. I think I think one of the biggest things in here is a storehouse for Pam, right? We don't ever see her, and they're carrying all these things with them. Yeah, they've got bags and stuff, but her name is Storehouse. Like, I feel like she can either carry stuff, or she grows bigger, and we can, like, they can go inside of her as shelter or something. I know that's weird, but I could see Made in Abyss doing that. The whole genetic modification between animals and humans and other creatures, perhaps, maybe, you know, I mean, anything, right? Bondrewd's a crazy guy. Bondrewd probably figured something out like that. He was probably researching that to begin with, to be honest with you, because Midi was an accident. Or Nanachi was an accident. Nanachi was not supposed to be in the room. She walked into the room and Bondrewd was like, "Oh, perfect! I've never had two before. Let's throw them down and pick them back up and see what happens." Right? So I think maybe he was experimenting with that in the first place. I mean, obviously he was. Obviously he was. Wait, that's like confirmed because he gives to the room and Bondrewd was like, "Oh, perfect! I've never had two before. Let's throw them down and pick them back up and see what happens." Right? So I think maybe he was experimenting with that in the first place. I mean, obviously he was. Obviously he was. Wait, that's like confirmed because he gives Prushka Mania before he's even or after he's doing all the tests with Minnie and stuff. So maybe he finds that out, that there's a blessing, that an anthropomorphic kind of thing has abilities and stronger immunities than, say, like a regular human that goes down into the abyss, right? Wazukan's whole, you have to shed your humanity. Another huge thing is the fact that Srajo was saying the only way to get in alive, right? Like, so that means you either can't have a soul, or you can't be human, or you physically have to be dead and brought back, or, like you die, your soul goes through that into the bottom of the abyss and gets replicated into something else, right? Like Liza being Clawbot. I think that's totally, like, I think that's a really good theory. I'm not saying that there's any evidence or anything to that yet, because I haven't looked into it that hard yet. But it is interesting. It's all super interesting. I mean, this chapter said it so much, but so little, right? It flipped everything that we were thinking about on its head, right? There's so many good people right now doing theories. Vulpolox on Reddit. Okay? This guy is so good. There's theories that I hate that I cannot disagree with because the evidence is just absolutely insane. But this is just a discussion for it. I wanted to talk to you guys about it, a deep dive into it, and maybe, I don't know, start talking about this some more. But I appreciate you guys checking in, and if you want more Made in Abyss, you know what to do. Later.